Building a route for a bikepacking race can feel overwhelming, especially in the beginning. So in this video, I'll go over the pros and cons of the most commonly used route building tools, explain in detail how I built a bulletproof route for the transcontinental race, and show you how you can do it too. In the very beginning, you might be tempted to just put in the start and finish locations and voila, route is ready. Right? Well, most probably not. Even if it was the best route, how would you know? We don't know what criteria each route planning platform takes into account, and they all probably optimize for something else. For example, Komoot probably wants you to go on an adventure, but this might not be the best option for a race. Other tools might prioritize cycling safety, which would be great for a family weekend trip, but not a race. From my experience, the best tool for racing is Strava, because it gives you the most control in choosing what the route is optimized for. Unlike elsewhere, you can optimize for minimizing elevation and pick an option to find the shortest route. In this case, even if Komoot and RideWithGPS would build the same route between Geraardsbergen and Luxembourg City, we wouldn't know why the route is the way it is. On Strava, we know that it's the most direct option with least amount of elevation gain on paved roads. However, a major downside to Strava is that it will probably fail to create a route longer than 200 to 300 kilometers. So, before doing that, we need to split the route into smaller sections and generally have a rough idea of where we want to go. A good starting point is to go from one control point to the next. But in a long race like TCR, these also might be too far apart. If that's the case, try to just poke around and explore any other constraints that might limit the number of possible options where you could go. These constraints could also be your own preferences. To show you what I mean, let's take the 2024 TCR section from the end of the start parcours in Belgium up to the start of Control Point 1 parcours in Slovenia as an example. I come from a flat country and don't have many options to train, or hills and mountains are not an option. So for the beginning of the race, I wanted to minimize the total elevation gain as much as possible to ease into the race and avoid possible injury. Looking at the elevation map, I identified two possible options how to enter Germany, either through the valley near Strasbourg or near Bonn and then continue along the Rhine River. Either case, I would end up somewhere near Stuttgart. Then, looking ahead at the Alps, I just dragged lines on maps across the Alps to see possible options and again, minimize climbing. Salzburg seemed like the best reasonable entry point into the Alps. Then, from Stuttgart to Salzburg, Munich was practically unavoidable. So, without building any particular route, we already know that we will ride close to Stuttgart, Munich, Salzburg, and either Bonn or Strasbourg. Now, these are more digestible distances for Strava. In the end, my final route for this section was only 80 kilometers longer than the default one, but with almost 6,000 meters less climbing. A brief side note, if you find this video helpful, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. It would help out a lot. Thank you. And now let's get back to the video. If you end up with multiple options and you're unsure which is the best one for you, keep all of them. During the race, the choice might become obvious based on weather conditions or from the experience of other riders ahead. Once you have a basic route dialed in, it's time to fine-tune it. This means verifying the road's surface qualities either on Google Street View or satellite imagery, checking that the route does not cross any forbidden sections, checking more detailed mountain pass information, as well as marking possible resupply points or any other points of interest. Here, you should also think about flow, rhythm, and your own preferences. For example, by taking some extra turns in a city, you might end up saving on elevation, but it might require to brake and start more often. In a long race, how you feel about your route matters a lot. So think about what kind of roads do you prefer, what scenery, and so on. For the fine-tuning, I would highly recommend RideWithGPS because it allows you to have multiple routes on the same map, and it also has the largest selection of maps. Other alternatives for an overview are Komoot collections and Google My Maps, but these have limited or no in-place editing options, and Google My Maps supports only up to 10 routes. RideWithGPS also has Google Satellite View, that is the highest resolution-free satellite view that I know of. Very important for checking out the road surface in locations where Google Street View is not available. If the route line obstructs the view, on RideWithGPS you can adjust the setting to hide the route when pressing spacebar. On Komoot, you can do the same by pressing M. For a premium road surface exploration experience, you can use 3D views with Komoot Premium or Google Earth. Google Earth is free, but you won't be able to modify the route within it. Always check the road surfaces manually and do not rely on road surface information provided directly in the route planning tools. These are inaccurate and you will not have a fun time if you trust them too much. Avoiding forbidden sections can be quite tricky because you can't tell Strava, Komoot, or RideWithGPS to avoid any specific location when making the route. At least for TCR, the forbidden sections are overlaid on Google Maps. So having it side by side with RideWithGPS, which also has a Google Maps view, is very convenient. A very important aspect of every route are the resupply points. The easiest way to find shops and gas stations is by tags on Google Maps. However, for a more comprehensive solution, I would suggest Overpass Turbo. This tool queries OpenStreetMap, that is basically the encyclopedia for all other maps. Here you can find all sorts of amenities. A really useful one is water fountains, especially in more remote locations. When you're done with the route, you will need to split it into smaller files so that your bike computer can handle them better. At this point, it also becomes important how you name these files, because you can waste a surprising amount of time trying to look for the correct GPX file during a race. How you name the files is your own preference, but here's how I did it. I named my files according to the formula segment number, race abbreviation, and finish location. This way I could more easily find the file on device by filtering by name in an ascending order, so that names with numbers in front are always at beginning. So file 01 would be the first file of my route, 10 would be the 10th, and so on. I used the race abbreviation TCR with capital letters for a route in progress and small letters for a finished route. This was helpful during planning. The finish location mostly helped identify in which country the end of the route is and whether the end is a control point or the start of a parkour where you need to be much more vigilant about not going off route by accident. This brings me to my last tip. Always keep the parkours separate and have control points as the end of a route. The only exception is when the control point is within the parkour. Then split the parkour only at the control point and make sure you make it clear to yourself that you've done so. Okay, this was a lot of information, but it also condenses most of what I've learned over the last 2 to 3 years of planning routes. And it also was everything that I did to plan a successful TCR route. I hope you found this information useful, and I wish that your next route is your best one yet. Bye.